Today we're going to do something slightly different. So all I've said to Bill is I want you to come and chat about something that you're deeply passionate about, and don't tell me what it is, because I want you as the listeners and the viewers to almost see and hear the reaction as we go through. Before we go into that, as always, Bill, how are you?
I'm well, Matt. Thank you. In San Diego, California, we're still, dealing with the COVID. It is not a good season for California, as everybody has read in the news. But there's signs of encouragement. But still, this is a ravaging disease that has not been controlled by any means yet. But encouraged. Thanks.
What is it you want to talk to me about today?
I want to talk to you about that subject, is how do we show up as our best selves? What's one of the key ways that we as human beings, regardless of race, gender, etc., profession, because all of us around the world are not our best selves right now. We're less than 100%. I did an icebreaker for a client the other day, and I said, I'd like you to go around Zoom and identify percentage-wise how you're managing this pandemic with work and home, and it's from 0 to 80. And the guy raised his hand. He said, well, what happened to the other 20%? And I said, you know what? I'm assuming that we're all about 20% off. You might be 90, but what was interesting is some people were down in the 40 and 50. So what that led us to was a discussion, why are we less than 100%? And what I'd like to address today is the whole subject that I'm passionate about professionally and personally is coaching. In our world of B2B sales consulting, Mentor Group has an incredible, solid competency in sales coaching. How do we coach sales managers to be elite coaches? How do we teach sales professionals to coach them into higher performance? Because I'm a product of executive coaching. About 30 years ago, I had an executive coach. I was an executive at the time at the bank, young. And I had some rough edges around me, Matt. I didn't play in the sandbox as well. And though I was a big, high, elite performer, kind of loud, and sometimes that wasn't productive. And I'm forever grateful the president of the bank got me an executive coach to sort of sand off a little bit of the edges that I had. And I remember that coach changed my life and changed my marriage.
That's a profound statement.
He changed me. And he invited me into a different way of thinking about myself, a different sense of self-awareness, a different sense of how I impacted others by my voice and my actions and behavior. And I said to him those many 30 years ago, his name is Dirk Metzger. I said, I would like to be a coach like you someday. And he goes, you would be a great coach. And I didn't think much about it till, about 15 years ago, I became an executive coach. I always had coached my sales teams and the teams that I ran, but I decided to take it a step further and be professional. And why I'm bringing this up today, Matt, is I just think that everybody is looking for someone to turn to and talk about what we're going through. Maybe just to open up a bit, but some people are saying, how the heck, Bill, am I going to manage this? And I believe that coaching them developmentally, coaching them on what's going well, and then inviting them into what are the areas that are bothering you the most? What's a gap in performance or mindset that we could move you from the current state to a much more productive state?
I've got more questions than I've got reactions at the moment because of what you just said, and I passionately believe everything that you just said. And part of me thinks even picking the phone up to somebody that you haven't talked to for a while and asking their "How are you?" question, when just to get people talking is not coaching in the sense of what we would normally understand coaching to be, but it kind of is in a way, because you're understanding where they are versus where they want to be, which is the essence of what coaching is. So what I'm really curious about, given your experience and what sounds like a life-changing moment 30 years ago with Dirk, what do you think makes a great coach? What are the skills, attributes? What is it?
Yeah, boy, there's professional competency profiles at places like the International Coaching Federation and other places that people can access. But I would say for me, the competencies that I've continued to develop and fine tune are, one, I'm a voracious listener. rather than a problem solver. That's important. It should be 75% them talking. It should be 25% of me summarizing and reacting. I think the second area is empathy, an ability to really try to walk a mile in their shoes and invite them in so you can understand what is going on, whether I'm not hitting my revenue goals, whether the sales team is in disarray and I feel a manager, I feel alone and isolated as a sales manager. Because parenthetically, we've gone through the transition of being remote salespeople to virtual, and now 2021 is virtual on steroids. We're now all virtual. And so I think empathy and listening. The third one is humility. It is an incredible privilege to coach another person informally. If you and I are on the phone and we're just kind of coaching each other through this, but professionally, I think humility, some coaches get out ahead of themselves because they think they have all the answers and they can sort of create a hierarchy. I'm here to fix you. You're broken. No. People are inherently doing well. As I always start out with my leadership or professional, I said, you're already a competent, good professional. But let's take a look at how could you become even better than you are incrementally, from best to better to excellent, or maybe, as I like to say, better than you can even imagine. That's what Dirk challenged me with 35 years ago. Bill, I think you could be a better leader than even you understand or imagine, and invited me into that tension. So again, we're talking about listening, empathy, humility, and then of course, a strong skill set. There is competence to how we coach. And we have to have a program. We have to have an action plan. It's got to have some guardrails around it. And I think the last thing I would just add is coaching is not therapy. I'm not clinically trained. And when somebody is dealing with the fact that they may be a bit broken or in clinical depression or whatever the case may be, an executive coach is not the right person. And many try to be. And I'm very sensitive to get them to a professional. So those are some basic competencies, Matt.
And that's a really interesting point, Bill, because what you said earlier is if you're at 50% at the moment, that we know we're seeing that some people are struggling from a mental fitness perspective. We talked
Absolutely.
about that on other chats.
Yeah.
How do you know as a coach, where's that line that you recognize where it's no longer a coaching conversation and that it needs to be something else? Because I think people would find that insight fascinating, actually.
Well, my perspective on that, and I appreciate the question, is when, first of all, the coaching relationship is not making any progress. You've identified gaps in performance or mindset that you're trying to build a bridge over, and you're not making progress. And one of the things that can happen is the person's not able to start walking over that bridge to better health, and you're stuck a bit. And one of the things then to press into is, why is that? Just simply asking the humble question, why is it that you're unable to build a bridge or do some of these activities we've talked about? And sometimes it could be, some degree of depression. One of the questions I ask immediately is, when's the last time you had a physical? When's the last time you got checked out bumper to bumper? Sometimes I'll hear people say, it's been 3 or 4 years, Bill. Well, you know what? Maybe we should pause, go take a physical, get some blood work up. You go take a checkup on how you're doing physically, because there may be something else going on here that I'm not trained to assess. I think the second thing, if I'm allowed to, is to interview their manager or some of their peers or some of their direct reports. Stakeholder interviews, they're called. And you get some additional insight that people will, with love and concern, will say, hey, Bill's not himself. I mean, he's just not himself, and we're concerned. And so you get outside insight to people that care, and also if you're a bit stuck, and then some of those questions which are tender, when's the last time you got a physical? When do you know where you are? So those are some thoughts.
And what you're absolutely advocating is, as a coach, you need to stop at a certain point. You need to not carry on when some of those warning signs are there. And I think I would agree wholeheartedly with that. So it's good advice. And let's go back to the benefits, the upside, because I know you're deeply passionate, and through your life experience, you benefited from this. Mm-hmm. Let's break a couple of myths, if you will.
Sure.
So number one, coaching is expensive. What do you say about that?
Well, it is expensive in certain situations. Executive coaching can be, a $15,000 to $25,000 a year engagement. That's typically at the C-suite or one level below. But coaching can, and I'm talking about solid coaching, not just somebody that's. The bad news is, Matt, everybody's a coach now, and I think that those that are trained will charge, typically $200 to $300 an hour. So if you think about that 2 times a month, you do the math on that, and what is that? 12 times 200, you're talking $2,400 or something. So I think one should beware. If somebody's only charging $50 an hour, I'm not sure you're going to get the benefit of a solid coach. But you certainly don't need to spend $500 an hour like some folks get. But the thing is, coaching is, I think, a reasonable investment because of the benefits. How can I take an assessment of where I am today, professionally, competency-wise, my mindset? We talk about at Mentor Group the IQ and the XQ, and we have all sorts of Qs we talk about to get people into a 360 environment. So I think that's the thing is, what's the ROI on coaching? People ask us that all the time. Performance is increased, mindset is increased, peace of mind is increased. And also, here's the other benefit. Things usually go better at home. I always tie things back to the home. These are life skills. These are life issues. It's just not about hitting your number and your quota. How could I show up better at home for my family and the people that I love the most?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So thank you. And then myth number 2 would be this one. The person who's coaching me needs to know more about what I need to be coached on than I do.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Now we have to separate something, Matt. The fact that I am a sales professional, been a sales leader for years, I certainly have, I think, earned the credibility to talk about sales. But when I'm an executive coach to a CFO of a publicly traded company, I've never been a CFO. So there's a difference between, yes, it's nice to be familiar with the industry, maybe have done the job, but the competency of coaching is to guide and walk alongside another person to talk about specific performance gaps or mindset gaps they're trying to achieve. I don't need to have been a CFO of a publicly traded company in order to help that person lead meetings better, to be a better listener. As I like to say, play better in the sandbox with everybody and sand or smooth some of the edges off of how they relate to the C-suite team, to their direct reports, and down in the organization, how they show up. I believe, and executive coaches are trained to say, let's talk about that. I'm not here to tell you how to do Sarbanes-Oxley more correctly. There's some subject matter expert can do that. So that's the other myth. I think I'm an avid golfer, as you know. The guys that have coached Tiger Woods to win 100 plus tournaments over the years, several of them never played professional golf. They are professional golf teachers, but they can help him get the club in the right position at the right time when he can't do it himself. But they can't go out and win 14 majors, 15 majors. They've never done that before. Yeah. They don't know what that's like. Yeah. So that's myth number 2.
Okay, the myth number 2. So two final questions for you. This is a fascinating subject. One for the coach. Actually, I'll finish off with the coach, and then one for the coachee now. So what do you think is that inflection point? If you're someone who's considering coaching, how do you know that it's time to get a coach?
Well, I think I appreciate that question. One is your manager may make that determination. They should be a coach as well. But they may say, there's some performance gaps or some mindset gaps here that I'm identifying and others are identifying. Usually do a 360 assessment, do stakeholder interviews, and there's either explicit performance or behavior. And so that's forced upon the person. You will get some coaching. That happened to me. You shall get a coach, and here he is. His name is Dirk. The second area is asking for, and I think a lot of people don't ask as much. I'd like to get better at what I'm doing, and now with span of control, maybe my manager doesn't have as much time to give me that one-on-one focus. So it's two-way street. It comes down to the person from the manager, and also people are asking for. So it's a push versus a pull. I like it when people pull. I'd like to get better. How do I do that?
Yeah, and that goes with the theme of these chats, the marginal gains. Always be looking for some way, even if it's very slight, to improve the way you are, the way you act, the way you interact with people. Get into that state of curiosity that I can always do better tomorrow.
Yes.
But
I think the performance is, I'm sorry, I just say what we're looking for is incremental but significant movement. Yeah.
Yeah, if you can get significant through incremental, then great. But then if you think of the whole principle of marginal gains, is if you can improve by 1% per day, it doesn't take very many days to get to 100%.
You're right.
And that's then significant. Now, if I'm an aspiring coach or I'm an existing coach, what would be your Bill Taylor top tip? If you were sitting in front of a coach and they said, Bill, we want you to tell me one thing that you think is going to make me a better coach, what would it be?
I would say go engage with another executive coach that you trust. Go get coached. I've had some coaches since then. I think peer coaching amidst professionals or peer coaching with managers is to say, let's practice together. Let's do some real role play together. Let's see how effective we are with each other. As you know, many times I just got done with a sales manager program that we did. And one of the things that they said time and time again is, we love being together. We love coaching each other. We love sharing best practices. So if you want to be a better coach, get coached by somebody else, a peer that's trusted, or engage with an executive coach to be even better. I have a coach right now that I've engaged informally in helping me fine tune some of the things I want to get better at.
So you heard it here first, everybody. If you're listening or you're watching, even if you are a coach, the Bill Taylor advice is get coached.
Get a coach.
So, get a coach, exactly. And Bill, that's been fascinating. And this slightly longer chat today. And as we mentioned at the beginning, we didn't talk about it. My sort of spin on all of this, if you will, from what you've said is, particularly now when people are maybe not operating at full capacity or full capability, it's kind of a window of opportunity that says, is the gap bigger from where you are to where you want to be than it normally is? And if it is, how can you engage someone to help you to close that gap, to have higher levels of well-being, mental fitness, in all aspects of your life?
Beautiful summary. Way to go.
And
I believe that.
Yeah, absolutely. And Bill, it's been a pleasure as always.
Yes, thank you.
Not having a theme in mind until we come into the chat today. Appreciate that.
All right, Matt, take good care of yourself and keep your family safe.
I will. You too, my friend. You too. And for everybody else, as always, stay safe. Think about the key themes and messages in our short podcast here. Get curious. What can you be doing differently for yourself that's going to enrich your life? Till then, stay safe, and we'll see you soon on another chat with Matt.